the foreskin constitutes 50% of the penile surface area. You're losing about 50% of the external penis by taking off. You are literally minimizing the penis in a culture that worships at the god of a larger. I mean, I get spam every day for increasing the size of your penis, and it doesn't really jive with taking 50% of it away.
Was there a historical aim here to stop masturbation?
Absolutely. Circumcision took hold in the Victorian era in this country, propelled mostly by John Kellogg, who we have as a household word of Kellogg's cornflakes, and he was an absolute medical and nutritional star of his day. He was like Deepak Chopra and Dr. Phil and Dr. Ruth all rolled in together, and he had a great influence on medical practice at the time, which included things like yogurt enemas and things like that. But it also included circumcision was to literally nip in the bud.
In males.
In males, but there's also literature that advocated it in female genitalia, applying carbolic acid.
Why is it done in a way?
This was done so that you could basically stamp out masturbation because it was thought, and this was the orthodox science of the time, that masturbation was the origin, the cause of all manner of physiological and psychological disorder. We're talking about epilepsy and palsy and schizophrenia. It was literally thought that there was an analog to chain smoking. You would basically shave years off of your life with masturbation. He truly believed that through circumcision you could live a life of Christian rectitude, and he has all kinds of scientific data to back that up. Now, since then, our reasons for circumcising have evolved to reflect whatever the great anxiety of the age is. But to give Dr. Kellogg his due, he at least acknowledged the erogenous potential of the foreskin that she's mentioned. He at least acknowledged the pain that was involved in circumcision, which at that time was an aversion therapy.
And I want
I think it really is instructive to look at the language, and when you're talking about taking that anger and taking that sadness and turning it into something that becomes legitimate. In fact, circumcision isn't even an adequate way to describe it. If you're taking a bodily part away, that language refers to that, a rhinoplasty or a mastectomy. That's something you can identify. If you were to talk about it, and genital mutilation is in fact a neutral term. We like to think about it as being cruel, but you are permanently changing from external the genitals of the person. Or if you talk about it as an amputation, that's accurate.
Correct.
So what's interesting is to see how circumcision is in fact a euphemism. And when Lori and I we were at a community discussion advocating or discussing circumcision as a prophylaxis for HIV, it was very interesting to note that the department head was using a PowerPoint discussion, and he talked about men who lack circumcision, which I thought was a fascinating sort of circumlocution, if you will, of language, because you would never talk about a woman who lacked mastectomy. You would talk about a woman with breasts as having breasts.
You know, sometimes you have to step
back. It was turned into a lack. It wasn't his lack of a foreskin.
The thing is, the doctors who do this were not given empathy when they were circumcised, and nor were they given empathy when they were taught to do it in medical school. And in our culture, we tend to see the doctor as God. We tend to defer to them. But the problem is that on so many levels, the medical textbooks do not have accurate information. Most of the childbirth books do not have accurate information. I can tell you how many mothers tell me they were given no information prenatally. They have the baby in the hospital, the father goes home, they're asked to sign some papers, they have no idea what to do.
Lori and Paul, there's no doubt in my mind that if somebody held you down and cut away part of your body while you were screaming and helpless, you'd be calling the police.
Absolutely.
And the society would demand that that person be put in jail. And we would see, we just finished, we would see it as a grotesque sexual assault. And not only that, but everyone who stood around and watched while you were screaming and didn't do anything to stop it, they would all be charged with a crime too. And the question, and I think, you know, this is such an important question for anyone interested in men's issues, is how is it that an attack on a woman, which would be understood to be a grotesque sexual assault, when it's done to a male, is seen as a routine medical procedure that can be justified? That double standard has to be addressed.
Because American society, first off, we already know there's a slant against men. and we've become hugely feminist in this society. There's always been a slant against men. It's a slant against sexuality in general. This is a very repressed society. Anything to do with sex or pleasure is still considered weird and taboo. If you have a perfect human being, how is it then, if you believe in God, that God, who has no error, makes a perfect human being except for the foreskin? Explain that. It's like saying, you know what, God is perfect, but I don't like this ear, so let me take this ear off.
You know what?
It's
You know what I've been told. I don't know if this is true or not, but I've been told that breast cancer can be eradicated. No woman ever has to get breast cancer. We just remove breast tissue from infant girls, and it's ridiculous.
It's
the idea
insane.
that you would cut off a
It's
healthy
insane.
part of the body is
But
insane.
people do that, Mel. People do that. Women who have histories of breast cancer will remove their breasts out of fear
You know
of
what?
dying.
If an adult wants to do that, let the adult make the choice.
That's right.
We're talking about infants who have no choice in what's being done, and we are talking about an assault on males that isn't done
Absolutely.
on females. And so is it just that this is a puritanical society that doesn't like sexuality?
It's
or is
ignorance.
Tell people what they need to know that they don't already know.
What makes me sad, because I exhibit at baby conferences and parents come and speak to me and they say that they were not given this information before they made their decision. And after they talk to me, they say that if they had had this information, they wouldn't have allowed it. So what parents need to know is that at birth, the foreskin is attached to the glans like the nail to the nail bed. So before they cut, they have to detach. It's meant to be a moist internal organ like your eye. You would never imagine rubbing your eye without your
You're
eyelid.
talking about the glands.
Yes.
It's meant to be a moist internal organ.
Yes, exactly.
Removal of the foreskin is somewhat structurally equivalent to removing the eyelid.
Well, when you rub your eyelid, you put your finger over, when you rub your eye, you put your finger over the eyelid. And the movement of the eyelid, because the foreskin eventually retracts back. And sometimes the average age is around 10. But what they remove grows to become 10 to 15 square inches of erogenous tissue. So if you take this index card and fold it, this is the inner moist part, the outer skin, like this. That's 12 to 15 square inches of erogenous tissue.
So when you're talking about the anger and things that you feel about this, a lot of that gets subverted into legitimizing it. Most of the people who are determining medical curricula in this country, most of the people who are determining public health policy are circumcised men, and they don't want to face that anger. They don't want to face
See,
that.
we're not getting at this, and I really.
But Mel,
I
our
want to
society-
get, but men are in denial about this. Yes,
Absolutely.
and the reason and you have to
Absolutely.
be in denial
But
about
when
it.
I-
How can you face the fact that so much of your sensitivity that you were supposed to have is
Exactly.
gone and taken from you forever?
Because
you don't
you don't
face it.
know it.
But
You
we're
don't know
telling
it.
them that, and men won't face the fact
Because
there's
men
nothing
are
they can do about
embarrassed.
it.
There's nothing they can do about it. They're embarrassed. Their parents did this to them. So what are you supposed to say? Mommy and Daddy were bad and cruel to me? And then you hear this, but I'm okay. I enjoy sex.
Absolutely, and men feel that they have adequate sexual and neurological function, and they feel therefore what they have is something they confer as a benefit to other people, and I think that that's how it is also perpetuated.
Go ahead, Laura.
There are a few things. When I do my shows, and a man from Ireland, from Sweden, anywhere where this isn't done, because what Americans don't realize is around the world that 85% of the men in the world are intact. They are not circumcised. It's mostly around the world, very Orthodox Jews and the Muslim men who circumcise. And I got involved with this. I am a Jewish woman with an intact son. It was the hardest decision. I went from being an obedient little girl to a courageous, bold woman who will now speak to anyone about this issue. Because I can say this, if I had a scalpel in my hand right this minute, and I said that I was coming to cut your genitals, and I will include the women, because we could be in a country where that's done, you would run out of here, and you would never come back. The trust in our relationship will have been broken forever. And I ask, when are we going to treat our precious newborns the way we would want to be treated? Every mother, when that baby's born, counts every toe and every finger and wants to know that they're completely whole. And there's one midwife I know, she has pictures of every animal and mammal around, and she says, every mammal, it is a wound to the maternal-infant bond. And I can't tell you how many women have said to me, you know, that they were told to get a grip, and to turn it over to the father, that the boy's going to look like him. And I can say this, when they started doing this here, we had a generation where the boys were circumcised and the fathers were not. And to end this, we have to have another transitional generation where the boys will be intact and the fathers won't be.
All right. Now,